Hello everybody and welcome back to another math movie. Today we're going to be starting chapter 4 already. This is going to be all about percents and fractions and turning percents into fractions. Hopefully you have your notebook ready to go. You have your brain ready. Let's go ahead, let's jump right in. To begin with, we have one word that you need to know and you need to write down, and that is percent. And all as a percent is a number of parts per every 100. You're most likely familiar with percents from your schoolwork that you get back. You know that you have 100% that you could get right, or all of the points that you could earn on a test or an assignment. And the percent that you get, let's say a 92, is how many points you earned out of that 100. So that's what we're doing, is taking what a percent is how many out of 100 or a whole. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking percents and we're going to be writing them as fractions. To do this, we want to write the percent as a fraction with a denominator of 100, since it's out of 100. So, for example, if we had 30%, the first thing that I want to do is I want to take that and I want to write that 30 in a numerator and have the denominator be over 100, because it's 30 times out of 100, or 30%. Then what I'm going to do is simplify. So we can simplify this. Let's go by 5. And 30 divided by 5 gives us 6. And 100 divided by 5 gives us 20. I can't think. And then we're going to divide this again by 2, because I know that we could simplify it again. And we're going to get 3 over 10. That cannot be simplified. So 30%, written as a fraction in simplest form, is going to be 3 over 10. Alright, so here's our first example, or really our second. Write 35% as a fraction. We're going to take 35, we're going to put it over 100, and then we're going to simplify. Let's simplify by 5 again. 35 divided by 5 gives us 7, and 100 divided by 5 gives us 20, and that's as low as it can go. So 35% as a fraction in simplest form is 7 over 20. Here we have write 174 as a mixed number in simplest form. So here's a little tip. Whenever you have a percent that's over 100, you're going to have a whole number or a mixed number. But we're still going to start the same way. 174 as a mixed number. We're still going to put it over 100 to start with. Then let's ask ourselves, how many times does 100 go into 174? Our answer is 1. 100 goes into 174 one time, and then you have 74 out of 100 that is left over. Now we can simplify this. And let's simplify it just real quick. Try to do it nice and easy by 2. And then we get 74 divided by 2. And that is 37. And 100 divided by 2. And we get 50. And I don't think that can be reduced anymore. I think 37 is a prime number. So our answer is 1 and 37 over 50. When you have these, you want to make sure that you don't forget to put your whole number. That you don't forget to leave it off and just put 37 over 50, because it would be wrong at that point. Make sure that you forget to put your whole number as a mixed number if you have a percent over 100. Alright, here's a couple for you to try on your own. Pause this video here. Unpause it when you think you have the answer, and then we'll go over it. All right. Hopefully you started with 15 over 100. And let's put this in simplest form by dividing by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. And that's as low as that one can go, so we're done there. And on the bottom, we put 168 over 100. 100 goes into 168 one whole time. Then we have 68 out of 100 left over. And we need to simplify that. Off the top of my head, let's try 4. And 68 divided by 4 is 17. And 100 divided by 4 is 25. And if I were just to leave it as 17 over 25, I'd be wrong. Because remember, I have this mixed number, this whole number here. So my answer is going to be 1 and 17 over 25. Now we're going to flip the script on you a little bit, and we're going to go from fractions to percents. So the first couple of examples we did, we had the percents, and we were going to the fractions. Now we have the fractions, and we're going to go back to the percents. So with this way, we're going to be given a fraction, and let's say we're given 1/4. The first thing that you're going to want to do is you want to multiply the denominator to get 100. So let's think to ourselves, what can we multiply the denominator by that would give us 100? I know that 25 times 4 gives me 100. So I'm going to multiply 25 times 4, and that gives me 100. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the numerator by the same 25, and 25 times 1 is 25 as well. And once I have a number over 100, then I know my percent. What do you think it's going to be if it's over 100? It's going to be 25%. So that's why my goal is to get the denominator to be 100, because whatever number is on top there is my percent. Here's one. Write 3 over 50 as a percent. So here we have 3 over 50. And we want to get the denominator to be 100 because we're trying to change it into a percent. So what do I have to multiply 50 by to get 100? I have to multiply 50 by 2 to get 100. And that means I'm going to then multiply the numerator by 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. Now that I have a denominator of 100 and a numerator of 6, I just make it a percent. And I know that it's 6%. Here's 3 of these very ones to try on your own, doing the same thing that we just did. You're trying to get the denominator to be 100. Once you do that, make sure you multiply the numerator, and that will give you your percent. Okay, let's figure out what did you multiply number 1 by to get to 100. You should have multiplied by 2 because 50 times 2 will give you 100. 31 times 2 would give you 62. And so the answer to number 1 is 62%. On number 2, you multiply by 4. 25 times 4 gives you 100. 7 times 4 gives you 28. And so the answer is 28%. Number 3, you multiply by 5. And 20 times 5 gives you 100. And 19 times 5 is going to be 95. And so this is going to be 95%. There is yet another way that we can take a fraction and we can turn it into a percent. It is a little lengthy and a little bit tricky, so make sure you're paying attention here. because not all your denominators will be able to multiply to 100. Here's a perfect example. 8 doesn't go into 100 nice and even. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to think of another way. That way is to do this and write it as a decimal first. So do you remember how to write this as a decimal? To write this as a decimal, what you're going to do is you're going to do 7 divided by 8. We did this in a couple sections ago. 7 divided by 8. And then we're going to work this out. 8 doesn't go into 7, so remember we add a decimal point. Bring the decimal point straight up. We add a 0. How many times does 8 go into 70? 8 goes into 70 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. Then we're going to subtract. 70 minus 64 gives us 6. We add a 0. We bring down that 0. 8 goes into 67 times. 8 times 7 is 56. 60 minus 56 is 4. We add yet another 0. We bring it down. And then we have 40. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40, and we can stop because we have a remainder of 0. So now we have 8.875. The next thing that you could do is to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So if you go 1, 2, put your decimal point between the 7 and the 5, and then put your percent sign. You've done what you need to do. So again, how you do that is you take the fraction, you put it into a decimal by dividing the numerator and the denominator, and then when you've got your answer like we did here, you move your decimal point 2 places to the right, and it will give you their percent. Here's one just like that for you to try. 40 is not going to go into 100 easy, so you're going to have to change this one into a decimal first, and then you're going to have to move it a couple places to get your percent. So try this one out on your own, and we'll work through it together. All right, so we have to do the numerator divided by the denominator, so 9 divided by 40. 40 can't go into 9, so I've already added my decimal point, and I've added a 0. Now 40 goes into 90 2 times. 40 times 2 is 80. Now I'm going to subtract, and I get 10, bring down a 0. 40 goes into 100 2 times. 40 times 2 is 80. Now I'm going to subtract again, and I get 20. Bring down a 0. 40 goes into 200. All right, well, that brings us to the end of Section 1 of Chapter 4, Percents and Fractions. Thank you for coming along with us. From here, we'll move on to some other topics, all dealing with percents and fractions. Our joke for today is there was a farmer, and he had 196 cows, but when he rounded them all up, he had 200. All right, guys, well, I appreciate it. Hopefully you understood that joke. That was kind of lame. Thank you for tuning in. Remember that you are special and that God loves you. We'll see you next time.